If you've taken an interest in dark fae or cryptid creatures, the supernatural or the paranormal, you will know that one of the places we know that they dwell is in forests and woods, remote places away from the human race. So then it comes as no surprise that people who enter these places will occasionally cross paths with something that is not only inexplicable, but that wants them gone, and will use intimidation, terror, and violence to make that happen. I was at a church camp with a friend in Lineville, Alabama, about 50 miles from the nearest town. It was a week-long camp and there were 10 staff and 30 teenagers and children. One day on the camp we all went out for a drive just to visit a local farm, and on the way back, it was night time by then, we all sat in the back of the preacher's red pickup. He was pulling a long trailer with everyone sitting in it back to the camp. On this drive back to camp, a young child said to me, "Hey, did you guys see that big white thing run across the road?" We all said no, as we'd been watching the stars, and then he pointed to the tree line, which was about 20 feet from the road, and there was this greyish white blur tracking along with the speed of the truck. It was incredibly dark out besides the stars, so it was pretty hard to make out what it was. Well, we all watched, trying to figure out what it was, and then all of a sudden, as we rounded the hill to the camp, it took off into the woods, and we couldn't see it anymore. Well, we got back to camp soon after that and ate our dinner. Some of the kids and staff ate inside, and some chose to eat outside. Well, I was eating inside with a friend, and after about 30 minutes or so, this kid came running in and he says, "Hey, that big grey thing is back and it's standing under the light." Now this camp had just a single light outside. So then everyone bolted to the door and ran outside to check out what was in our camp, and there it was, standing under the light. We all piled outside to see this lone 8 to 10 foot tall and bulky with no neck sort of man about 10 feet away from where we were standing. This thing's hair was grey and its skin was stone grey. I remember its fingers were thick, like its muscles were massive, and it didn't appear to have a neck, but it had these massive neck muscles that led up behind its ears. Its arms were the same length as its legs, and its eyes were shadowed by its brow. We couldn't see its eyes at all, and it just stood there, swaying side to side, just looking at everyone. It appeared to me to be a Sasquatch from what I had heard that they look like, but I'd always thought they were just a myth. All I know is what I saw, and it was as clear as day, and all 40 of us saw it. So we're all just standing there, and of course one kid dared another one to walk up to the thing. And he did. He got about 5 feet from it. And it was then that the preacher came out, wondering why everyone had gone outside. Well, he saw the thing and he ran back inside and came out with a shotgun. He told everyone to get back, so they did, of course, and he fired off a single shot into the air. Well, me and my buddy, we ran back to our cabin where all the boys stayed, which was a 2-story open barn, and we hid behind a bed. I know it sounds stupid, but, we were young. And as we ran, we heard what sounded like brush breaking, and then all the children and the teenagers began screaming, and then everyone rushed back to their cabins just crying. Well, the preacher and the staff came to console everyone one by one and calm us down, and they tried to get our minds off things. Well, the next day we were still feeling pretty jittery, but we carried on with the camp's activities and we ended up going to a water slide on the property and we spent hours down there. And when we came back to the camp, the girls' cabin had been ransacked. Everything was just thrown all over the place, and the door to the cabin had been ripped off its hinges. After that day, no other strange things happened, but we all stopped going outside at night. Every single person spent the night indoors until we went home again. On the way home, I told my mum exactly what had happened. Well, I began to research legends of giant, grey, hairy creatures in Alabama, and the common folklore I found was something called the White Thing. It's considered a violent form of a Sasquatch that would not only harass people but also attack them. Well, apart from the ransacking of the cabin, nothing else really happened, but I do wonder, if the preacher hadn't come outside when he did, what might have happened to that kid that walked right up to it? Well, this encounter with this strange creature was witnessed by 40 people. That's a lot of people. I can't help wondering how many of them have spoken openly about their experience, or maybe shared it anonymously, and how many have buried it or explained it away somehow. I wonder how many of them allowed this experience to influence their established view of the world around them. Well, I'd like to thank you for being here with your open mind, and I hope you're enjoying the video. If you enjoy my channel, why not join me as a member? Members receive sweet treats and bonus videos. Just check out the join button for more info. Now, another creepy camping experience. This one was shared by a group of 10 people. I'd love to know what you think, but for me, there is something particularly insidious about this encounter. I was camping with my husband and his family at a small remote lake in New Mexico. There were about 10 people in our group, and there was another group there of 6 people in the next campsite. Well, it was nighttime that it happened, and both groups were doing typical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks and telling stories, when we all heard what sounded like a little girl yelling out for help. Well, neither group had children with them, but we were all positive we were hearing a little girl and decided we'd better search the area that we heard the noises from together. There was a field behind our campsites, and it was there that we all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from us in the field, and it was making the noises. Well, we all agreed that this thing looked maybe 6 feet tall. It was skinny and white as can be. We made our way closer to investigate, but whatever it was that we saw started backing off as we got closer, until eventually it disappeared back into the trees. All that night, and I mean all night, this wasn't some teenage prank. We continued to hear a little girl calling out for help. None of us could sleep. I still have no idea why it was doing that, but in the pit of my stomach, I think whatever it was trying to lure us into those thick trees. Camping is fantastic. It is wonderful to spend your days and nights at one with nature, but it can also be dangerous in ways which cannot be anticipated. We must remember that stocking up on all the latest camping and survival gear, and even camping in numbers, can't protect us from certain things that dwell in remote corners of the natural world. I'd like to send love and thanks to my patrons and my YouTube members. Your support means the world to me. And remember, it is a strange world. Keep your eyes and ears open and be kind. Cheerio!